We are shooting.
Okay, very good. Well, my first effort is going to be to shoot you right back, because you want this to be in character, right?
Yes.
Well, let's see here. I have the green light. I think I won't include more of the gazebo than the cooker. Okay, well, I've got that out of my system. You know, I was born in 1933, in January. But even that's kind of interesting in itself, because for most of my adult life, until we went to Europe at the loving savings of your mother, and I applied for a passport. I thought I was born on January 17th. But according to the Plainfield, New Jersey records hall, I was actually born on the 16th, which is very confusing to me, because now I'm not sure when I was born, but I was born. Dad was working as a timekeeper for a construction company, and Mom was a nurse. And he's moving around quite a bit, all over the place, from Pennsylvania up and down New York and in New Jersey on various construction jobs. And in those early days, we were very close to his parents, who were still alive then, and apparently visited with them a lot, although I don't remember. I was only told. I remember an incident my mother told me about when I was really very young. Apparently I was able to walk. I was that old. They had some kind of a celebration day in the summer, and I even forget the name of the town that was in, but it was some summer resort that the O'Briens went to, and they had this parade, and I got away from my parents and jumped right out in front of the leader of the parade and started walking along, and with the crowd cheering. So that was my first taste of fame. And then I guess I didn't go for it too much, because I sort of backed into the background of life after that. Finally, we moved to Yonkers at some point, where his parents lived, to Pier Street, 43 Pier Street. And my recollections of that were primarily fighting with the neighborhood kids, playing Mumbly Peg, and the best part of all, no, second best of all, was sleigh riding down Young's Hill at night with the street lights on. That was romantic as anything. And the other part was running through the park near Young's Hill.
Do you remember the park name?
There's little trees that grew little green beans, and we used to use them as ammunition for our pea shooters. We seem to have unending ability to create diversions for ourselves. I don't remember too much about my neighbors, except the guys across the street were an Italian family. They introduced me to potato sandwiches. They used to get, as a form of a snack for them, potato sandwiches, and they confessed to liking them so much that I just had to have one. So,
how do you make a potato sandwich?
I guess you just put a piece of potato on a couple of pieces of bread.
Like a boiled potato sliced up?
Oh no, well, I don't know. It was potato inside, apparently boiled. A little salt and pepper, I guess, because it tasted fine. Or during that time, I had an incident that stuck with me. I was walking up the other side of the street. I was going to school or not, but...
How old were you?
Well, this is before the 4th grade. This was the time in my life before the 4th grade when I was interested in Mumbly Peg and the Jewish daughter of a rabbi who was in my class at school named Naomi Rosenberg. I don't think she knew I liked her, but she was gorgeous. So it was in the 4th grade. I must have been like 8 or 9 years old or something like that. But anyway, I was walking up the street either coming to or from school, and this fellow was approaching me, an older man. And as I passed him, I felt this rap on the side of my head. And I don't know what he did to me or how it happened, but it felt like he had taken his thumb and whacked me in the temple or something. To this day, he just kept on going. I kept on going. As far as I know, a stick could have fallen out of a tree and hit me, but I always blamed it on him. And it was one of my unexplained life incidents. At some point, Mom and Dad became disenchanted with each other.
Well, before we go on to that, can you explain to our viewing audience what Mumbledy Peg is?
Yeah, it's a game with a knife. There are quite sophisticated versions of it, but the simplest knife game is that you agree to draw a square in the ground with your knife blade as being the territory or the area that you're going to be working in. And I think there are different games, and I don't remember them all, but one of the ideas, after you've become really sophisticated, after you can just throw your knife in and have it stick, is that you can throw it in off the tip of your finger or off your nose, or it gets really involved, off your elbow and stuff like that.
So what's resting on your finger? The point?
Yeah, of course it's just light, you know.
Right.
And what you do is you divide up the territory of the square that you've put down. And the one I remember is like war. I think they would call it war or something like that. What you did was you divided the square in half, and half was yours and half was the other guy's. And the object of the game, of course, was to throw your knife when it was your turn into the other guy's side and divide his territory and claim the half that you wanted. Or maybe, I don't know, you might have had to take the smaller portion, or I can't really remember that. But anyway, the idea was to erase the lines, and then he had all this territory, but then you stuck your knife in and you got, and of course sometimes you would miss. So if you missed the turn, the other guy had the advantage of going ahead of you. And I remember sometimes we had quite tiny little pieces of territory that we were defending. And that's what made it more interesting. Oh, I just we played a lot of marbles too. I forgot about that. Oh God, yeah. I remember. We collected. We had our favorite shooters, and there's a lot of different games we played with marbles. But that was a territorial thing too. Or not? No, it wasn't. I guess what you did was drew a circle. And you each put so many marbles in, and you tried to knock the other guy's marbles out and get them, and whoever wound up with the most marbles, of course they were keepers, you got to keep them. So some guys had sacks of marbles. And your shooter was always, the way you prepared your shooter was very exotic. You would take one of the larger marbles, one that was really easy to shoot, and you would scratch it on the ground on cement or a rock or something until it became really like you had sanded it all over and it was nice and rough. It wasn't pretty anymore, but boy, you could hold on to that thing. And you use that as your shooter. Of course, all your other ones were pretty Aggies and things like that. And everybody had a bag of marbles. I mean, you couldn't be a kid without that.
And you mentioned that you got in fights with the other kids in the neighborhood. What would you...
Well, I guess over almost anything, kids loved to... a bunch of kids beat me up one time. I remember Joe and Bing came out of the house and tried to get into it, jump all over them. Of course, I being 5 or 4 years older than Joe, at that age, you're quite a bit bigger, and I don't know if they were very effective, but somebody had to pull us all apart. But there was always a pecking order in the neighborhood, you know. In Mom's neighborhood, they had a bully named Sammy Santoro. You know, nobody messed with him. You know. He would beat you up just for looking cross-eyed at him. And we didn't have anybody quite like that, but everybody knew who the strongest person in the neighborhood was, you know. Of course, when it got down to the area where you were a little bit on the even side, well, we had to test that all the time, you know. So we had a lot of wrestling matches and fights and
fist fights?
Not just maybe they started over some disagreement, but the next day it was gone. There's nothing there, you know. That continued all the way up into when I lived in Bronxville, and we had fights in grade school in Bronxville. Boys always fought, and you know, you had to prove yourself all the time. And if you were playing sports, sometimes when you're playing sports, that's why somebody did something that you felt was ungentlemanly or something like that. You might just go after him. Of course, you might just lose too. But I remember in grade school we knew who was the toughest. I got beaten up by Bill Young one time, who later turned out to be a cross-dresser. I remember Henry Schumann, my buddy, told me that he went to some homecoming once and Bill Young turned up in drag. And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, this is my class. I don't remember any. The guy was a sportsman. He was a fine football player. He's a little short guy like me. So, but even so, he made the varsity basketball team, which was quite a feather in his cap. He was a real good sportsman. Never in God's world would I ever thought that he would have turned into a homosexual or whatever he was. He certainly liked to wear women's clothes because that's the way Henry found him. Henry thought it was a joke or something, you know. Hey, Bill, pretty funny. Turned out it was his new behavior pattern. But anyway, yeah, that was, I mean, it was a big thing because, of course, if you won, you were a hero. And everybody had their little clique that was with them, you know. I had my buddies in high school, but that was high school, yeah. But back to Pierce Street.
Well, what about your relationship with your brothers?
I don't even remember it until I got out of the service, really. I mean, you know, we were kind of, I mean, I was older than they were, and so I didn't hang out with the same guys. And when we were playing around the streets in Bronxville, which is I don't remember playing with them in Yonkers. but when we were playing around the neighborhood in Bronxville, they were still that much younger than I. They had their own friends, and I had mine, and it just, we didn't hang out together too much. We were fiercely loyal to each other, and we knew about what the other guys were doing, but it just turned out that we all kind of went our separate ways. Like I had my class of friends at my age, and they had theirs, mostly
right.
from school or even in the neighborhood. We had a lot of kids in the neighborhood of different ages.
Well, what about just in the house? What was it? What were your usual traditions or
I could
habits?
Them up, and that was the end of that. As far as I remember,
Well, how about with your mom and just your daily routine?
Well, in those days, for entertainment, we had the radio. There was no television then. And we heated our house with coal. That was kind of interesting. And the Iceman still delivered at that time. And we had a guy come through the neighborhood. That even happened in Bronxville, that we had ice delivered. But we had not the organ grinder, but the guy with a little sharpening cart. He had a push cart with big wheels on it. As you probably have seen, you kind of think of street scenes of Italy, but the wheels are real big. It's a flat cart that rides in between the two wheels. The wheels are higher than the cart. And this guy had all kinds of grinding and sharpening equipment on this cart. And everybody went out to him. He would pass a house, and all the housewives would bring out their knives and scissors and everything else. I remember scissors were a particular thing that you wanted to keep sharp. We didn't have too many big knives that I remember, but scissors. I think he might have even repaired umbrellas. And
That's a difficult thing to do. Repair umbrellas.
Apparently, he knew the ins and outs of umbrellas, and he might have done other similar repair jobs.
Well, let's see, you moved to Pier Street when you were around 5, is that about right? So it's 1938?
No, well, I don't know. I was in the first grade, I know, in PS number 3.
So maybe 1939? And this whole time you're talking about is the late 30s, early 40s?
Yeah, the late 30s.
So were you still living on Pier Street when the Second World War began?
Well, let's see. It started in 1941. I don't know whether we had moved to Bronxville by then or not. I was right in that time zone. I think while I was still in Yonkers, Dewey was running. I think he was running for president or something like that. I thought electioneering was fantastic because they had parades. We would go from our neighborhood up to Yonkers Avenue, which was the big main drag where the trolleys ran. It was several blocks away from where we lived. And the kids would all sit on the sidelines, and they would hand out these buttons, vote for Dewey, vote for this guy and that guy. So we had a million buttons on us, and that was fun, to walk around. We didn't know what they meant, but it didn't make any difference. We had the buttons.
Now, Dewey was a prosecutor in New York?
Yeah, he was. He had been very successful as a district attorney or some kind of prosecutor, and I think he was running for some big office, maybe governor, or maybe.
I thought he ran for president.
Maybe he did run for president, and I would have to. Oh, that's right. And it turned out he lost.
Right.
Yeah. Who did he lose those two then. Was that the Taylor? Yeah. No. Oh.
Let's see.
I had a daughter named Margaret. Never thought I'd forget a president's name, but remind me a little bit of Perot. Oh, come on. Maybe that was how he became president. Who was his name? Oh, well, I don't remember. All I remember is that at that age, whatever it was, I thought it was the neatest thing to sit up there and have a parade, because the Dewey's, one of the slogans that filtered down to us was, "Get your ass off the grass, it's Dewey." And I thought that was funny as hell at that age. And, of course, boys didn't swear in front of girls then. And swearing was only among the boys. We didn't really swear too much. I don't think I swore too much until I got into the service. That was later on. Maybe you'll remember the name of that president.
Well, Truman?
Truman, of course, yeah. I wonder if that's who Dewey wants to. I'm ashamed of myself. I don't remember. I have no idea. But yeah, I started to say that that's the kind of stuff we did for entertainment. I didn't start going. I might have gone to the movies a little bit when I was let's see, I was 8 or 9. Must have gone to the movies. I think that they had either matinees or special things for kids. You had to wait online outside. I remember we used to go to the Lowe's Paramount. That was up the other way on Yonkers Avenue. And all the kids would wait outside, and then you would get in, and then we would watch there would be some feature like Tarzan or something like that. Oh, I loved Tarzan. I thought he was great. He was my hero. I thought, God, the greatest thing would be to have an existence like Boy did, to have a hut in the trees and live in the jungle and be intimate with the animals. And of course, those words have different meanings now. God, that's just Mom was reading to me this morning. Sherlock Holmes. We're starting to read Sherlock Holmes together. So she was reading in the car, Sherlock Holmes. And I'll think of it later, but it's a word that was used then to mean something much different than it's used today.